when you walked out of here last Wednesday, you're in the parking lot and you look down at your phone and what happened?
I missed a text from somebody saying, hey, just a heads up, hearing that Saban is going to retire tonight, you should look into it. Well, I made some calls. Nobody could confirm it at that point. Now, what I think we knew was, in retrospect, was he wanted to tell his team first. Once that happened, then the news was fair game.
So was there any sense at all during the season that this could be his final
There's
season?
always a speculation that was going to happen at some point, right? That he eventually wants to go work at ESPN and be on TV and talk about the game and the grind of being a college football coach, especially in this day and age with the transfer portal and NIL and all the stuff that comes with it. I think it's exhausting, and even for Nick Saban. And I think he knew this was a really good job he did from how un-Alabama-like the team was at the beginning of the year, to what they were like to be a playoff team and almost make it to the championship game.
So do we know did you pinpoint when he knew? Do you think he strolled on the sideline to the Rose Bowl, maybe looked around saying, this is it? Does he know it?
There's a funny moment that happened after the game. So at the Rose Bowl, I remember being with a bunch of people right outside the Michigan locker room. Mm-hmm. And Saban had just done his post-game press conference. He comes down the ramp of the Rose Bowl in the golf cart. Really has to stop because there's a cluster of people in the way who are, kind of where the Michigan locker room is. And he kind of looks and sees everybody and does this kind of like pageant-y wave and gives this kind of half smile. And I remember thinking, well, that was not the expression I was expecting from Nick Saban. I was kind of almost expecting the famous Urban Meyer lose to Michigan State pizza box look, right? Where it's just defeated and disgusted and all those other things. And I was like, that was I remember the expression of Saban. And look, I brought that up when I was trying to confirm last week, I don't know, about 7 days ago at this time, to somebody. I was like, I wonder if he knew at that point then I just coached my last game, and my guess is he probably did.
Right, sure, don't you think?
Yeah, because I don't think he was going back and forth on it, to the end. You don't make a decision like that, reactionary. But I think he probably had to feel at that point, this is it. I mean, you look at some of the reactions in retrospect of people saw him around the game, and I think it maybe is a little more foreshadowing than we probably could have imagined.
And this may be naive to say, but I was kind of stunned that there wasn't a handpicked successor, that there's nobody on the staff that
there was nobody from this group. I mean,
right?
If it had gotten to the point where it got past Kalen DeBoer, we had heard that they were going to at least interview Tommy Reese, the offense coordinator, but Tommy Reese is like just barely 30. But the idea that you would replace him, and Saban had, ideally, the best coach out there is Kirby Smart, who is his protege. But Kirby Smart's got, he played at Georgia. He's from Georgia. He's got a really good situation, a great situation at Georgia. And you don't want to be the guy to replace Nick Saban if you already got that. I just think if Sark was still the offensive coordinator, I know the people inside Alabama really think highly of him and what he had done there. But he's at Texas. And in a lot of ways, Sark has a better situation than if he were to come back to Alabama, because at Texas, he's replacing Tom Herman. At Alabama, you were replacing the greatest coach of all time. That's just a heavy shadow.
Is that why because again, you just used the phrase getting past Kalen DeBoer. I mean, how many coaches, because it seems like they kicked a ton of tires here, starting with Dan Lanning and then with Sarkisian, and then with Mike Norvell, and then they got the Washington coach to say yes. Is that a fair assessment of the way this went?
I mean, I know they liked Dan Lanning. He had been there, but by the way, Kalen DeBoer's 3-0 against Dan Lanning.
No,
right?
by the way, I'm not clearly. Clearly, I saw what he with my own two eyes.
I think Richard it was a case of this. I think that they were really impressed by Kalen DeBoer as more people found out about who he is and what he's about. He was the one guy that really has no ties to the region. I mean, Mike Norvell had never coached in the SEC, but he's in Tallahassee at Florida State. He coached at Memphis. He's obviously recruited in that footprint a lot. But by the same token, two of the greatest coaches, most successful coaches in recent history came to the SEC with no SEC experience. One was Nick Saban before he got to LSU, and the other one was Urban Meyer before he got to Gainesville. And those hires worked out really, terrifically for those schools. So I don't know, in Sark's case, I think there was probably interest, but I don't know how far they actually would have got down the road with him. Mike Norvell, I think there were real conversations there. I don't know what the order of sequence is. I'm sure in the Florida State side, they're going to say Mike Norvell was the choice. In the Alabama side, they're going to say, we were always interested in more. Kalen DeBoer was a guy we thought would be more ready to take on the responsibility of following Nick Saban. The Dan Lanning's deal, and we reported this after Saban had stepped down, his buyout is so big. It's way bigger than what has been reported with just Oregon. And so everything I know, having been around him and had a lot of conversations with him, is that he really loves it up there. He feels like he's got a really good thing. It seems like he's got a really good thing. Oregon's got the NIL piece figured out. Like, that team, I would say, to me, would be the favorite to win the Big Ten in their first year based on what he has coming back.
Sure.
So I don't think he was in position to go, hey, I'm really coveting that job. But I think a lot of stuff we're not working out for it to go in that direction anyway.
It just was kind of surprising to me that Alabama just didn't get its pick because of it's Alabama, because of what, and I know those are monster-sized shoes to fill, and you never want to be the guy after the guy. But, I mean, I might want to live in Alabama's locker room. You know what I mean? Like, those facilities, and one would think the support that they must have is second to none.
I think it's the alignment piece of it that I've heard is different, where if you're a head coach someplace else, you have to go through a lot of other stuff to maybe get something rubber stamped.
Yes.
Whereas certainly at Alabama, when you're Nick Saban, there wasn't much of that resistance or bureaucracy to wade through. So I think those situations were really good. But again, in a lot of ways, I don't think the gap is significantly bigger at almost any of those programs. By the way, Texas is going into the SEC this year. I mean, again, I think what Steve Sarkisian's done there, I think he kind of knew, I'm rolling here. Why would I leave? As opposed to there. The one that's curious to me a little bit would be Florida State and Mike Norvell, just because we know how much friction there's been with the leadership at Florida State to try to get out from under the ACC. And for Mike Norvell, if he could have gone, and I honestly do not know if there was an offer. I think those things would get caught into semantics, and it's unlike, there's a level of transparency that comes with the NFL protocols that there is none of that in college. So, and I think, Greg Byrne, the AD, I think if you had asked him, I'm sure he respects Mike Norvell. I get the feeling he's very, the more time he spent around Kalen DeBoer, the more he probably feels very confident he's got the guy.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.